Okay, let's call this meeting to order. First is staff with roll call.
Attendance noted.
Okay, very good. Approval of the minutes. I have one item with the minutes. I think it was item number 5 on, it's missing the vote if I'm not mistaken. Was it item 5? Yeah,
You're-
item 5. It was
you're right.
approval, but no, so we'll need to get that in there.
We'll fix that and bring them back next time.
Okay, very good. With that then, ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second, with that item in there. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Okay, this is an opportunity for the citizens to address the commission on items not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we can move on to our first public hearing. That's item number 1. It's 14 Cup 4, 14 variance 06. Consider conditional use permit and variance related to construction of a new replacement Wendy's restaurant at 6500 Lindale Avenue. Staff?
Thank you. The Wendy's fast food restaurant has been operated at 6500 Lindale Avenue since 1979. The original restaurant was approved with 74 seats and 34 parking spaces. In 1987, the council approved an addition to the solarium, or the addition of the solarium, to the front of the building, thereby increasing seating capacity to 90. The site is legally nonconforming in regard to a number of site requirements, including parking, landscaping, and setbacks. Wendy's is requesting to demolish the existing restaurant and construct a new building that's approximately 200 square feet larger. Wendy's indicates a proposed seating capacity of 75 people. You'll note that's approximately the same as what was originally approved in '79. The proposal will bring the site into compliance with trash storage, landscaping, and equipment screening requirements, and improve internal site circulation and the overall appearance of the building. Pedestrian access to the site will also be improved. Items such as parking lot setbacks and landscape islands within the parking lot remain non-conforming, but they do not get worse. Wendy's is asking for variances or consideration related to 3 items that do not comply with code requirements. The first is a decreased distance of the order station from a residential property. The Market Plaza property to the west, although it is mixed use, it is zoned planned multifamily residential. They are asking for a decreased front setback from a conforming 36 feet down to 32.9, and a reduction of the required parking from a reduction of the existing parking from 34 to 33 spaces. A full discussion, as usual, is attached to your packet. I'm just going to discuss primarily the items in which Wendy's is asking for deviations from code. First of all, there's the drive-up service. Drive-up service is conditionally permitted in this district. There are 5 specific criteria related to drive-throughs that must be met, with the exception of the setback or the separation between the order station and the residential to the west. All criteria are met. The requirement is 150 feet separation. We've talked about that a number of times before. The existing drive-through equipment is legally non-conforming with a setback of 55 feet from that property line. Wendy's is requesting a reduction to 47.9 feet, and staff believe that's reasonable. We are meeting the intent of the ordinance. The residential portion of that mixed-use site next door will remain 227 feet from the order station. So we don't really anticipate any new impacts on that residential property. The proposed new building and site design improve upon a number of existing performance standards, although there are instances where, due to the size and shape of the parcel, current criteria cannot be met. Trash facilities, as I mentioned, will now be incorporated into the interior space of the building. Landscaping and screening will be greatly improved. A designated pedestrian entrance from Lindale will be added. Sidewalks and boulevards will be brought up to current standards. And the building facade in general, as you can see in the attached renderings, will be greatly improved. Staff believes that one of the most important improvements will be to internal circulation by creating a one-way drive aisle system. And that's going to prevent, if you have gone to Wendy's and tried to use the drive-through, coming in off of 65th Street, cars often try to make a very awkward movement into that queuing lane. With the addition of the circulation aisle around, this will hopefully avoid that movement. Wendy's is requesting a variance to allow the front building setback to be reduced from, as I said, the complying 36 feet to 32.9 feet. While the general setback requirement in C2 is 35 feet, a couple of years ago, many of you will remember, we allowed for a reduction in setbacks in the C2 district. We want the buildings in general pulled up toward the street, and that setback can be reduced to as little as 5 feet, so long as there's a customer entrance on that wall. So Wendy's is asking for a variance in one of two ways. They're either asking that you allow just a reduction, pardon me, of the setback by a few feet, or they're asking that you grant them a variance to reduce without the addition of the pedestrian door. Now, I note in the staff report, excuse me, one second. Okay, thank you. I know that, not quite, there we go. The customer door will be moved over 10 feet closer to Lyndale Avenue, and there will be a designated crossing. The boulevard and sidewalk on Lyndale Avenue will be greatly improved. And so we do think that Wendy's is meeting the intent of that regulation, where we're really creating a more enticing environment for the pedestrian, and that's why we allowed for the reduction in the setback. So staff does feel that the intent is met here. In terms of parking, the existing restaurant is legally non-conforming. In 1987, the city approved a 90-seat, 2,788 square foot restaurant with 34 parking spaces. The city no longer calculates parking based on seating. We've talked about this before because of the variability, and we can't really track that very well. So under today's current standards, we would require 43 spaces. That does include a reduction for transit. Properties which are legally non-conforming in regard to parking and looking to expand can provide additional space just based on the additional restaurant space. Obviously, on Wendy's property, they don't have any space at all. They would have to look off-site for the additional 3 spaces that they would need. The code also allows applicants to apply, for a modification required based on a parking study that is generally prepared by a professional engineer, but it can also be prepared by someone equally qualified as designated by our director. Typically, in the case of fast food, we have looked to the franchise to tell us, to the corporate entity, to tell us what their parking standards are across the country. When uses are this prolific, we assume that they know the parking standards that their operation needs to succeed. So in this case, you'll see a letter attached from the Director of Real Estate supporting the reduction to 33 stalls based on the fact that saying that these parking ratios meet corporate requirements. There are a couple additional items of note that I've listed in your staff report. I'm just going to call attention to a couple. One of the requirements of the attached resolution is a revised landscape plan. The landscape plan that's included in your packet is obviously very much an upgrade from the existing landscaping. However, there are some things in terms of tree sizes and parking lot screening that are required by code that we will be asking them to address. You'll note on your plan that the cooler is currently, the cooler is not designed into the building space right now on the plans. Wendy's was working on that when we were creating the staff report. They understand that requirement, that must be built into the interior space of the building, just like the trash enclosure. So that will happen, but it is listed. Pedestrian lighting that you've seen go in along Lyndale Avenue for all of the other new developments will also be required here. And finally, there won't be any changes to Wendy's cooking equipment. And so odor control, the addition of odor control will not be required. Wendy's has indicated that they have corporate standards related to odors anyway, and they use some best practices in there, and their representatives, I'm sure, can explain the details of their system if you'd like to know. Otherwise, the Wendy's team is here. Jared Ducklow is representing Wendy's for Crown. And that's staff's report if you have any questions. Otherwise, the applicant can stand as well.
Okay, does anyone have any questions of staff? Yes.
Just one quick question. Have there been any problems with the parking overflow or anything at the site?
No, we've never had complaints.
In regard to parking, under the circumstances, would it be advisable for them to seek permission from the is it the marketplace lot where FedEx is and that particular one?
From Market Plaza?
The Market Plaza, I'm sorry.
It's certainly a possibility. It is something that we've discussed if there is a need for additional offsite parking. We have discussed that with the applicant. We have actually discussed talking with our liquor store director. And that's because Market Plaza is also considering some changes.
Yes.
And so I think we want to let them get through their potential renovation before we would suggest sharing there, but it is certainly a possibility.
Okay, thank you. The other question I had was in regard to the drawings with the outdoor seating. How many tables or chairs or whatever are going to be outside?
This plan shows 3 tables.
Okay.
The Wendy's team could better describe how many chairs or they expect to be at those tables.
Yeah, since this is an open hearing now, if you'd want to come up and make some comments.
Hello, and thanks for your time. I'm Aaron Murray from Architecture Design Group. I work with Foreground and Melissa to go through the plans and incorporate as many of the items that Melissa and their team asked for. And as you can see on the drawing up above, we have actually 3 outdoor seats. Each table has a potential of 4 seats in there, but that one more square table, actually we're not showing a chair there currently, so we have actual area for somebody in a wheelchair to pull up to. So we have actual 11 chairs there. The type of outdoor seating that we have is more of a cast concrete built-in chairs, so there wouldn't be that 4th chair at that one space. So.
Other questions?
More of a comment. I'm certainly intrigued by your art, your artwork here on the depiction of how it's going to look, almost photographic in nature. The drawings that you have. How true to reality are these?
The facade is true to reality.
Okay.
We utilize the kind of the landscaped area. You can see the outdoor seating is up front.
Mm-hmm.
But so the site is going to be changed a little bit, but the actual look of the building facade, use of materials, use of the daylighting, the blade with the Wendy's logo on it, that is all current, and those are the colors that would be out there, and so that would be the look of that building. The only changes that we would make, and they're not incorporated in here, and we worked that out with Melissa, is on the elevation we're looking currently right on the back side of the building where the brick facade is. We have the trash enclosure built onto that, and then currently in the way farthest back, you can see the freezer and cooler that's not internal to the building. That will be enclosed too. And that look of the trash enclosure and the freezer cooler will be that back portion of the brick veneer with some soldier coursing and that metal, corrugated metal up above. So we're not changing the look at all for those 2 items.
It's very attractive.
Thank you.
At least in my eye, it is. Are you going to change anything in service hours that would affect peak parking time or customer numbers?
I'll let Jarrett speak for that one.
Good evening. Jared Ducklow, representing the ownership. The intent is not to change the hours at this time. It's to continue to move forward and operate here. We're really trying to upgrade the look. Wendy's as a whole is trying to upgrade the look. This is one of our older locations, and it's really providing us with an opportunity to make Richfield the first one that we actually have a scrape and rebuild of an IAC.
You know, the danger of doing this in Richfield is when you do something like this, you usually are very successful. Pizza Luce, your neighbor down the block, would be a prime example. So that's why we generally ask about parking. You're probably going to have more customers than you anticipate. And I am concerned about that. Would you be willing to enter into some negotiation or questions with your neighbor up around FedEx and Petco and so on for permission to have overflow parking there? Or if somebody parked there and walked to your restaurant, they wouldn't get excited enough to have it car towed or something.
Could I, just 1 second. I think you addressed what your studies have been relative to other restaurants of the same comparable size. You came to the conclusion that it was 33, I think was the number, if I'm not mistaken, of parking spots. Do you want to talk to that a little bit? And that, I think, will answer Tom's question.
Sure. And the majority of that study was based around the fact that we previously had 34. We were operating 90 seats. We had 1 seat reduction, or 1 parking stall reduction. We've reduced by 16 seats. In large part, it's not necessarily so much a square footage reduction, because as you look at it, the size of the building actually increases slightly. It's more about the interior design. If you look at the plans that are shared, the seating is a different type of seating. Aaron, how did you refer to it? It's no longer the cafeteria style seating. It's
More like coffee environment seating. We have different pod seating. You know, we have a Wi-Fi bar, some more lounge seating, and just, you know, some family seating, and then some booth seating around the perimeter. So Wendy's in general, I think our dining square footage actually increased by 8 square feet. You know, the remainder of that increased square footage was accessible bathrooms. We currently don't have a little bit more of some dry storage, and, you know, just the process of how the food is laid out. But the actual dining rooms only grew by 8 square feet, but we eliminated 15 parking stalls, or 15 seats, just to kind of give that more of an upscale environment when you're in there. You don't, you know, you're not just in the line in the cafeteria. You have some private areas, sit and talk and discuss, and in some cases stick around there too. They do offer the Wi-Fi. They do offer that little seating in front of the fireplace, which you currently have now, and that's just something that they don't offer.
And that is, I mean, you can see on this photograph here on the left-hand side there, it's a much warmer environment. They've got the dividing wall in there, that red wall with the fireplace on it, and so forth. And we've certainly taken into consideration as well the employees. A considerable number of our employees actually use public transportation for this location, so that factored into our study as well. And then dealing and talking with corporate Wendy's, obviously we know initially when you open there's probably going to be an increase. We certainly all hope that's the case. We believe that it'll stabilize though over time. You know, the pedestrian friendliness of that whole area within the community is something that we were striving for, and that included, you know, the outdoor seating and so forth. We certainly hope that the additional use of bikes and overall people being able to walk there. We have a lot of customers that come from the neighboring residents there. So that's where the majority of the study.
The other aspect is our corporate actually, working with them, they want a quantity of tables too, not just reduction, change of amount of seats, it's also reduction of amount of tables. So they look at, you know, a pot of 4, they have, you know, you're not gonna have potentially, I think their ratio is 2.24 people per table. So we actually have more parking stalls than, so look at that.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Gordon?
Just one. So if if approved tonight and then subsequently approved by the council, when will you guys plan on construction, and when do you plan on completion?
The intent would be to move as soon as possible. We're actually finishing up the plans now to be able to turn them in for permitting, even prior to the council meeting. So we would move on that as soon as possible. The intended completion date would probably be about mid-May.
Okay.
Try to have it done this summer.
Mid-May 2015.
Correct.
My, fast food, fast construction.
Yes, very fast.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, I ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Commissioner
Motion and a
Jeb,
second.
do we want to see if there's anybody else who wants to speak to this?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry, that's a good point.
I've only been called on that a couple of times, so I thought I'd,
Well, thank you very
my
much.
turn to say.
Thank you very much.
No, no, no.
Is there
no.
anyone else that wishes to speak to this issue? Okay, seeing none, now there's been a motion and a second. Thank you, though. It's the proper way to do it, so I appreciate that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. I just want to make a couple comments. I really like this design, and I think it's going to just complement that area so well. I think it just is fun, it's open, and I think complements the stuff that they've done with the Richfield Liquor Store and Lake Winds, and will just make that area very vibrant. So, nice job.
I would move the recommended action.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Good luck.
And it is going to look exactly like those pictures. Really? Okay. Oh. Excellent. I compliment you. It really does look nice. Thank you.
Okay, next public hearing is item number 2. Continue the public hearing, consider amendment to the city zoning ordinance related to taller accessory garages. Staff?
Thank you. As noted in your staff report, there was an error in the legal notice, and just to make sure that everyone who would be concerned about these changes has an opportunity to speak at the public hearing, we've delayed the public hearing, and we're asking you to continue it to February 23rd. This will be republished in the February 12th Sun Current edition. I have attached a draft just in case there are any comments this time that we can take back. And adjust things before that public hearing. And so if you have any comments, I'd be happy to hear them. Otherwise, we're just looking for you to continue.
I looked it over. I felt comfortable with it, but is there any other comments relative to any issues on it?
The only comment I had was one that we talked about in the study session, which is use of gross footage area. Actually, I think creating a construct that makes it really difficult for a layperson to understand what it is the ordinance is attempting to address. So, for example, using the gross footage area definition, somebody who wanted to put an apartment above a garage would be limited to a 450 square foot footprint on the garage because, 500 square foot footprint because gross footage area would count the second level, which was the apartment, and the garage. So in fact, you're not really letting anybody build a bigger garage. You're just letting them squish it in a different direction. So that was my observation at the study session. So even though we're not voting tonight, the gross footage area concern still persists.
Okay. Did you have a comment on that, staff, at all?
We did take a look. We took a look at the definition because there were concerns. And we compared it to a number of other communities, not just in Minnesota, but across the country. And it's a fairly typical definition of gross floor area. So we looked at it in that way. We are still looking at it to see if it can just be worded to be a little more clear. But like I said, it's strangely similar across the country. And then I'm not sure if you're also getting at the fact that we are not increasing the overall size of a garage, so we are continuing to limit, not just based on footprint, but we're continuing to leave those same overall square footage limitations in place. So yes, it would limit you if you have a 500 square foot garage to adding 500 square feet above. And I think at the study session, you had mentioned footprint being perhaps more important than overall gross floor area.
As we were
Ye-
chatting through it, the average resident is still, or a Richfield resident is still limited based on lot coverage. This one, I think, appropriately says your garage still has to be smaller than your house.
Mhm.
Whether gross footage or otherwise, the height restriction applies. There's an increased ceiling, but it still can't be taller than the primary building on the lot.
Mhm.
And then a 50-foot lot is limited to a story and a half. 75-foot lot or greater could be 2-story. So there's already a lot of restrictions in the existing construct. The gross footage area, though, I don't know if it gives particularly the public that was responding to the public webpage, when they were responding to the notion of 2-story accessory buildings, the primary concerns were that it be aesthetically pleasing, which this ordinance or proposed ordinance addresses, that it not allow large garages to be pushed to the front of the lot, which we haven't changed any of the front setbacks, and that the other concern was around business, noise-intensive uses, which this doesn't change any of the existing constructs. So in my look-through, it seemed like, well, yes, you could go higher, you don't actually get more space.
And that is true.
So it's inconsistent with the public's, I think, perception on the comment side, which was, if you go higher, you should be able to take existing footprint and add another level from a square footage perspective, where the way it's proposed right now is you can go higher, but you don't get more square feet. Because while attic space doesn't count and crawl space doesn't count, we don't really, the current code doesn't define crawl space, defines basement as being below grade and inclusive of crawl space, and it doesn't define attic. So my observation was, and it wasn't included in the packet, but the definition of gross footage area, except for accessory buildings, is only used in commercial. It talks about elevator shafts and atriums and excluding spaces used for common recreation. And below ground area with a head height of less than 7.5 feet used exclusively for mechanical storage, which it's appearing to put a commercial definition in the residential space in a way that's exclusively limited to garages and accessory buildings.
Well, I will say that gross floor area is used in calculating square footage of new homes. There are minimum square footages required for new construction, and so they are used there in a single-family context as well.
Sure.
But you're right. There aren't as many exceptions in terms of gross floor area for within a single-family home, and so I can see how the definition itself seems more tailored to
Mr. Chairman?
commercial.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we accept the staff report and continue the public hearing, post the revised notice, and move on. That's
Second.
a motion.
Second.
Been a motion and second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Okay. On to new business then. Item number 3, recommendation of intersection designs for 66th Street. Staff.
Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, Mike Eastling, Public Works Director. We had a study session on this item on January 12th, and I believe that there was 4 of you, I think, that was there, 3 that were not. And I just wanted to let you know that there is no action that's necessary from the Planning Commission on this issue. But the Transportation Commission asks staff to go to all the commissions and the Rotary clubs or anybody that would slow down for us to talk to them, to talk about this very big decision that the city is facing. The city has a chance to reconstruct 3.5 miles of 66th Street from Cedar Avenue to Xerxes. Opportunity to change really the face of the city, and part of that was the mainline sections, and of course there was a lot of visibility to the decisions that were around that, and those decisions have been made and made a second time actually in January, but that left the decision about the intersections, and the Transportation Commission has made a recommendation. But it's so much more than just transportation. It affects the life of the city. It affects the businesses. And so we just want to make sure that we take the time, that anybody that wants to comment on it, and certainly we invite the Planning Commission to take action on this, that you'll have an opportunity to do that. Now, and by the way, you can make a decision tonight, and you do have one more meeting, I think, before the city council meets on the 24th in February. So if you did decide tonight, if you wanted to make some sort of recommendation one way or the other, we could include that in the council packet that goes out to the council on the 24th. And if you don't feel comfortable now or ever doing it, it wouldn't be in the packet, but you would still, I think, have a chance the night before if you wanted to for some reason. So that's kind of the procedural backdrop. And I have brought with me just reams of slides. And that at least 4 of you have seen most of those, and I don't want to subject you to those. But I also don't want to, but I want to answer any of the questions that you might have. So with that, I would be open to, maybe trying to go over quickly or maybe just go right to questions, and maybe there might be something from the slides that might help explain any of the questions. But I'm open.
Mike, is there anything that you could talk about maybe real quickly in terms of appearance? Because as we saw it with the Wendy's presentation tonight, appearance is pretty important. And I know that this is going to do a lot for the appearance of 66th Street and will affect the appearance of 66th Street for a lot of years to come. Yep. So if maybe any of your slides talk to that, or if you could talk to that in
Sure.
general terms.
Yep.
And I know you're not the Arts Commission and you're not those people,
Right.
but and I'm building also off of the new signs that MnDOT has put at some of the entrances to both Richfield and Minneapolis, which are now appearance things that are changing. How people react when they enter Richfield or react when they enter Minneapolis, because there's now a sign that says you're coming into Richfield, you're coming into Minneapolis, and this is now the urban homestead. And those signs, I think, look very appealing. And now 66th Street may take on a new appeal because of what is about to happen. So if you could address that generally, I'd like to hear more about
I'd
it.
be happy to do that. And before I do that, I was going to mention, I don't know if anybody saw the Sunday paper, the headlines of the B section. I went ahead and made copies of it because it gave really a pretty nice rundown of a pretty good rundown, I think, of roundabouts. And I also should also say the Transportation Commission recommended, and the staff is also recommending that we go with roundabouts at those locations. And a lot of the reasons are identified, and I think in a very readable form, instead of throwing engineerese at you. I think the Star Trib did a pretty good job of saying they're safer. I mean, the speeds are down, and so you don't have the T-bone kind of opportunity. Everything is glancing, kind of merging kinds of things that are there. And the statistics have borne that out. And in fact, and I mentioned at the study session, there are states that are going to roundabout first, so that instead of, if you're gonna put in an intersection, they say, put a roundabout in, unless you can show for some reason you shouldn't, and go to a signal. But they're really, and that's kind of the direction that but certainly, I think Richfield City staff, now that we've had a chance to look at this more than probably just about any other city. We've had this 66th in Portland, it's a busy roundabout, and we've had University of Minnesota and MnDOT study pretty closely the track record that we have there. So anyway, so we have a bias. We're that staff is recommending that we go to these roundabouts. On the aesthetics, I think, I'm just going to ask you to just think about when you're stopping at a typical signal and the look and feel of that. It has something of, I'm going to say, almost an industrial feel, certainly barren, open, not inviting, and compare that to the roundabout that has, certainly it's broken up by the landscape features that you only see pieces of it. Actually, the raised median prevents you even from seeing the far side. I mean, you're really seeing the green space in the middle, so I can talk about what kind of concrete ought to be used and the size of pipe in there as an engineer, but truly, as far as on these aesthetic and appearance kinds of issues, I don't claim to be any kind of an expert and only offer the differences, and that then you can judge for yourselves how important that issue might be. I think from the staff perspective on the safety side, our police and fire, are very avid. Our best cheerleader is the fireman, the fire chief, who have been out when there is a serious accident. They go out there and take the people out of the cars and put them in the ambulances, and they have a first-hand knowledge, and they know that with a roundabout, you just don't get into those kind of accidents. So they are a very strong proponent of these kind of intersection controls at the busy intersection. And the same, and the police chief, and the same thing.
I like roundabouts.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I will go out of my way to use this roundabout. It's very easy to get through. I think it's much quicker. But where I can't wrap my head around a roundabout is where you have here the 66th and I-35W, and right in there, the other one that is not on here, but it was proposed at one time, was at Penn and 66th, and because of the topography of the hills and whatever, I
think I'll
just
go over
could
to
not wrap
the
my head
graphic.
around that.
Now, this, what's shown up on the graphic is that 66th Street is passing underneath 35W here. And what is shown, there's something, they're called dog bone roundabout or dragon eyes because of their appearance roundabout. And it is really kind of one roundabout that has that shape. You'll notice that there is no break to come across and make an entire circular route here. So if you want to do in a roundabout, normally you can come in and you can turn around and come back the direction you're coming from. And you can do that with this, but you'll pass through and come all the way around through like that. A couple of the features of this that we've been working on is that a particularly dangerous corner is as you're going southbound from 35W and onto 66th Street at what is now a signal here today. There's been a significant number of accidents there, not exactly sure why all that is, but this kind of roundabout should eliminate certainly all the serious accidents that are occurring there, and that's one of the reasons we're doing it. I think you'll note that this is a 2-lane roundabout here, 2-lane here, and actually this one only shows 1 lane right now, and there was a concern from the bus company that the proposed bus rapid transit light on 35W, actually it's operating today, but not to its full effect yet. the orange line, has a station here and here where they will be coming off and picking up passengers from the 66th Street bus line and coming back on. And so now it appears as though this is going to go to a 2-lane roundabout. Maybe that's more detail than what you wanted, but we're in the process now of going through the final design process on. So does this, Tom, is this beginning to help you give a feel for how that might work? So if you want to take a left, you'd coming from the west?
It does. I mean, I'm still slightly skeptical, but, you know, much better. It's probably a good thing I'm not a traffic engineer.
Right. There are many of these that have been built.
Yeah.
You know, I just can't think of. I think there's one in Minnesota, and I think it's in Cottage Grove. I'm sitting in for, you know, Jeff is at City Belt. Yeah, Cottage Grove is like that.
Cottage Grove at Jamaica Avenue.
Yeah, has one of these
Yeah.
designs, and there are plenty throughout the country. There's actually quite a number of them in Carmel, Indiana, and the reason I bring up Carmel, Indiana, it's got a population of 70,000. It's got 60 roundabouts. I mean, they have gone to and are really replaced all of their intersections. They're kind of a roundabout first kind of community. Some of those were retrofits, but most of them they put in as the city expanded over the last 10 years.
I guess, again, for me, it's the topography. If you're coming south on 35, you're exiting to 66th, you're coming down a hill.
Right.
If you are going north on 35, you're exiting to 66th, you're
Right.
coming down a hill on that side as well. And it just, where my skepticism comes from is the sight lines that are afforded the driver approaching that roundabout.
Right.
And whether or not they are going to be able to clearly see and judge oncoming traffic that is in the roundabout that would cause them to pause and let that car proceed as they should in a roundabout. It's just the
Well, Mike,
incline.
Mike, what does the speed go down to then in this roundabout here?
15, 20 miles an hour
Yeah.
for virtually all of them. And that's kind of the difference, and one of the reasons why they don't even want you to see across to the other side of the roundabout.
Right.
The merging distance that you need at 20 miles an hour is only a couple car lengths.
Yeah.
And so that is very easily, like today, there has been at times no right turn on red as you come, especially northbound. There's a no turn on red as you come down onto 66th.
Right.
I think that's been in and out. I think it's still in right now.
It's, I think, from the morning hours until 10 at night.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
And
yeah.
there are often, I drive that area, there are very often cars, drivers that really can't see the sign on the pole ahead of them. And I know there have been various things tried, you know, signs with flags on them and things like that. Cars that will stop and they'll be waiting lawfully, and other cars behind them will be beeping the horn and so on. But it's my concern again was coming down. You're looking, you're concentrating on going down and so on, and you don't see the cars coming into that roundabout, the end of the dog bone, as you say.
Right.
That's just where my skepticism comes. I'm sure you guys would iron all of that out.
Sure. Well, maybe I think I can answer it directly. Right now, what you're trying to do is merge into a 35 or faster stream of traffic, and you need to see quite a ways back in order to do that. And that's the problem with the right turn there. If cars are down at 15 and 20, now all of a sudden you just have to look back a much shorter distance, and something that the bridge itself doesn't begin to block out the traffic, and so it's more manageable because of the low speeds at the roundabout than it is today.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, at the study session, somebody raised a question, and I don't remember who it was initially, but Councilor Elliott sort of echoed it, that when you're heading east, or when you're eastbound on 66th, and you're planning to head into the queuing lane of southbound 35, there was some concern about traffic from there backing up onto 66. I'm just wondering if there's any validity to that, and if the concerns with that were mitigated. And then I have also a follow-up too.
Something that happens today with the signalized intersection, if the traffic is backed up and the people that run the signals that meter the traffic to get onto 35, if they allow that traffic to back up onto 66th Street as it does today, it begins to chew up one of the lanes as you go upstream. And if that happens, the same thing would happen here. I mean, as it does today. You would chase a lane back down 66th Street for those that are trying to take a right there. I don't think it would present anything different than what's out there today in its effect.
Okay. And I'm also just wondering, I mean, just kind of based on the short video clip, it sounded, and some of the discussion, it sounded like roundabouts have been tried, over the past several decades with varying degrees of success. I'm just wondering, like, how the heck it took so long to finally figure this out and to get it right.
I would say there was there were circular intersections, Councilmember Pittsburgher. There were circular intersections that had been constructed in Europe and especially out east, where they would have many intersections coming to the kind of the town square. And so there was these circular devices that frankly didn't work very well. And so those are the ones that you probably heard, and it came out of Britain, an attempt to try to make those work better in the environments that those circular devices were in there. And there was two key changes that occurred not that long ago. It was in the 80s. That if you have to let the people in the roundabout have the right of way, and the other, instead of, like in the roundabout today, if you yield to the right, you would do nothing but let people keep coming into the roundabout. So it is a new right-of-way rule. And the other one is to have, when people entering the roundabout, enter at an angle, at an angle that's a merge instead of a T. When those two things, and they put those two things together and started to experiment with just what that angle might be and the size of the circle, they kind of developed in Britain a kind of a sweet spot, and they developed a whole bunch of them there. And I think the article in there talks about how many are in Europe, 20,000 or some big number in Great Britain and in France. And so it kind of tried and true there. Then out east, especially New York, 15, 20 years ago, they started to pick up a few of them. And what happened there happens in every state as it's come across. They put a couple in and watch them a long time.
And I think, Mr. Chair,
you're sold on it.
Those are key points in helping to explain this to, skeptics and non-believers who aren't quite ready to buy into this, and that I think we finally got the engineering figured out, and we can bring it to scale.
Yeah, very much so. Mike, my question, first of all, I like this. I think this is, when I first saw it a few months ago, I think it was Jeff was giving us a presentation. And I think it, again, gives our city to look much more modern than what it does at this present time, because there's so many things you can do in those roundabouts, too, to make it accommodating to everybody that's visiting as well as to us as residents, but also takes care of the traffic situations. Well, my question is, I know you did a heck of a job originally when the first roundabouts came through. I assume that you're going to continue that on with this new 3 that'll come through, because these are a little bit different to people, and people will need probably some education to really accommodate it effectively.
Right, yeah. Hopefully the learning curve. Now, people, I think, understand it. When they first came in, there was, they're kind of sprung on them, and it was a new phenomena. And I think the article talks about, and it's something that we found too, that there was a lot of skepticism, a close, the general public sentiment coming in is probably more than half that think it's not a good idea. And clearly afterwards, just 2-3 years later, it's 75% or more. So I think what we hear today, now this is what I'm hearing, and you can help me, you've got your own circle of friends, and I should give kind of a disclaimer here. I'm not allowed to talk about roundabouts when I'm with my in-laws, because there's a couple of them that just don't like them, and so I know there are those that just won't warm up to the idea. So I know that sentiment is out there. I'm not saying that now that everybody finds them. There's something about them that some people just have trouble accepting. I have to, as an engineer, I have to say they're safe. They have a very high capacity. I can say those kinds of concerns are not well-founded. They're different, that you have to drive them differently than a signal. You don't have the lock sure assurance as you wait for the red light and then it's green and it's your turn. I think in some ways that can be false. The bad T-bones come when that one driver in a million blows that red light. But you have that real positive assurance with the signal that is different with a roundabout. Kind of take turns and not knowing exactly how to do it. Did I answer your question? I kind of went off, got onto my in-law, but but I think you were talking about how are we going to unveil
Just the
this?
education.
The education. What we're going to everybody. I mean, we want to make sure we're going to every group in the city, because it's going to end up being closer to $50 million invested in this road. It's a major change. It's kind of like, and we're asking questions like when you remodel the kitchen, are you going to knock out that wall or not? I mean, these are the kinds you're either going to do it or you're not, and you have to make that decision up front. And so that's why we're, as much as we can, venting this decision as much as we can.
Just a comment, I still remember the first time I ever went around a roundabout. I was 18 years old in college in Wisconsin, and I had only taken driver's ed like 2 years before, and I had no idea what to do, so I just followed the car in front of me. It worked out fine, but so it was my first harrowing experience on a roundabout, but I love them, and I'm really excited. I live just off of 66th and Penn, and my husband and I like to walk a lot of places. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to be walking east, because I think this will be a better environment for that. And I think the concern that I normally hear about roundabouts is about safety, and that seems to be something that, those experts, transportation engineers, fire, police, seem satisfied with the answers. So in that way, I'm satisfied as well. So.
Well, and and Chairman, if I could make a comment here, that is the one thing that I think we're learning more about how to make signals safe for pedestrians. And I think we commented last time how we're going to pedestrian first, and with the roundabout at Portland, and that one is designed like the 99% of the roundabouts in the country. I think what we learned there, ahead of a lot of people, because of a study from MnDOT that helped us with this, that we can move that crosswalk just a car length further upstream. And then we also have something that you don't see very often, but you'll see some of these devices now on American Boulevard, and we put one in Richfield, on Richfield Parkway. It's a push-button rapid flash, not the slow yellow, but it's almost like a police car flash on a rectangular sign that lets you know a pedestrian's present. So as you're coming out of the roundabout and you've been busy looking at cars, and they come upon a crosswalk, if there's a pedestrian that wants to cross there, it'll be flashing to you, and that'll alert you that you should be looking for it. You're supposed to be looking for pedestrians all the time, but I think this makes it it elevates the position of the pedestrian even more.
Other questions of Mike? Discussion? Okay. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. What's the... you can make a recommendation and ask for approval.
I would move the recommendation that they proceed with the roundabout designs with lots of art. Okay. At each of the intersections that they have so prescribed here, 66th 35W, 66th Lindale, 66th and Nicollet.
And along with the warning devices as indicated on the motion.
That's part of the art.
Right. Oh, that's part of the art. Okay. I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Here. Oh, Susan?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, that's part of the art, isn't it?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Engineering and everything works well until you get the person that goes backwards. And I have been on a roundabout with somebody who went backwards, and that is disconcerting. It's also disconcerting to have someone go across like the ones on 70th and Edina. They go straight across. I've had someone stop and wave me to come on. So, as much as I drive them, and I can drive them, all the engineering in the world doesn't help those people that have problems figuring out how to get on them and staying in the right lane and doing all that. And because I'm a defensive driver, I get really worried about when I see someone going from one lane to the other in front of me, and So, you know, it does have, you know, it's not all a bed of roses with them. And so there's always going to be those quirky drivers who don't really quite get it, who really have no business being on them. But I do think that it's important. I am sitting here looking at this T-bone thing, or not T-bone.
Dog bone.
What? Dragon? Oh, whatever it is. Trying to get on 35W North, and I'm thinking about in the morning when I'm driving east on 66, trying to get on to 35W North, and there is a steady stream of traffic going west. Am I going to sit there, you know, and get frustrated? And because it's, you know, because the stoplight, I know when the stoplight's coming. I know when I'm going to get on there. Now with all the steady stream of traffic going west, and I'm trying to get on 35W North, it's going to take long. It seems like it would take longer, but you know.
Yeah, but there's going to be one at 66th and Lyndale, so they'll have to slow down a little bit there.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, you know, I see the shortfalls, but I also see the advantages of it. And I know, like I said, the person going backwards on it one time was mind-boggling. But that, what goes without saying, I certainly support it.
We don't have any of those type of people in Richfield. We don't have any of those people in Richfield. Oh, no. Oh, well, I tried. Okay. Oh. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you, Mike. Okay, and next item is discuss the bylaw change related to quorum. Staff.
Thank you. As you all recall, or most of you will recall, in 2011, the City Council voted to reduce the number of planning commissioners from 9 to 7 to make the group a little bit more manageable. That was to be achieved through a gradual reduction through the expiration of terms or resignations. We are down to the 7-member commission now, but the bylaws still call for 5 members for a quorum. We can reduce that to 4. It's a simple majority to make a quorum. It has come up once or twice this year where we have struggled to get a quorum, so staff is recommending that we do reduce it to that minimum of 4. Our bylaws require that any amendment to the bylaws be discussed at an initial meeting and then considered for adoption at the following meeting. So I'm bringing this to your attention now so that we can hopefully adopt the change at our organizational meeting in February.
It's a logical change. I would support it, and I would move that we do it.
Second.
Okay. I'm just curious, do the other 7-member commissions as such as 4 a quorum normally do, or is it usually, is it usual to have an odd number?
It is usual to have an odd number of commissioners so that in general you're going to so that you won't get a split even vote.
Right.
And yes, it is normal to have the quorum be a simple majority.
But a motion fails on an even vote, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So
Yes, that is correct.
So I guess, yeah, okay. I mean, guess that's what we can do. That's fine. I'm okay with it then. Do we need to?
You don't actually need to take any
anything?
action. We'll
Okay.
just bring that change next
Yeah.
month. Be prepared to see it.
Okay, very good.
Rescind my
So
motion.
anybody have any at odds with that? No? Okay, we're fine. Okay, great. Very good. That was easy. Then we have any old business? No. Liaison reports, Community Services Commission.
I don't have one. I was unable to attend the last meeting.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. City Council? Any report? Hearing none, move along. Hearing, let's see, Housing and Redevelopment Authority, any report?
The meeting on January 20th, there was a proposal to adopt an affordable housing policy to guide subsidized housing in the future. And I was unable to determine, I couldn't go to the meeting, I was unable to determine whether or not it was adopted. I don't know if staff are aware as to whether or not the proposal was adopted.
I believe it was adopted
Okay.
with some very slight modifications to the wording.
Okay.
But yes, that policy is available on the website if
Right.
anyone would like it, or you can let us know and we can send that out for you.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Richfield School Board
No report at this time.
report. Transportation Commission?
I would ask that my minutes from the study session serve as my report, and they're filed with the meeting minutes.
Chamber of Commerce?
Check out the chamber website for current events.
Thank you. Any other? Okay, hearing none. Any staff report?
I just did want to mention, we have some upcoming meetings. There is one tomorrow night. There are two proposals. It's a longer than usual study session. There's a proposal by International Autos Group, who is out of Milwaukee and Chicago. They would like to build a new Audi dealership along Interstate 494. And there's also a proposal for redevelopment along Cedar Avenue and 494, that same area, and that presentation will follow Audi's. Then on, let's see, that's January 17th, February, I think that date is wrong. It says February 18th. There is another study session, and I believe it's to discuss some housing proposals for around the roundabout. I believe that's on February 24th rather than February 18th, but I will double check that date for you. And then our regular meeting on February 23rd, the accessory dwelling units and taller garages will be on that agenda, as well as the usual February organizational things where we will talk about possible study sessions for the new year. We will welcome new commissioners. We are losing a few commissioners. I will let them state that for themselves here. But at the January 27th meeting, which is tomorrow, the council will appoint new planning commissioners. So we will have a couple new members next month.
Excellent. Any other comments?
I
If
have a
not,
comment.
oh, yes.
Well, my husband and I are moving out of Richfield, which we're sad about. So my term originally expires in the end of January, and we are moving on February 13th to Bloomington. So we're sad to leave, and I've enjoyed my time. Obviously, I can't sit on the Richfield Planning Commission if I live in Bloomington, but I've enjoyed working with you all for even a short time. And I'm definitely going to come over and drive on your roundabouts. So, because I don't think Bloomington has a lot going on over there. So, in that regard. So, thanks again, and sad to leave, but I'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep watching us on TV. I
I
think you might
will.
be able to get it over there.
You can tune in.
Okay. Tom, did you have any comments at all?
This is the end of my term, and I have decided that with additional work responsibilities and other things that I should move on and make room for somebody else. I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. I've enjoyed my interactions with the staff and all of the fellow commissioners here. I think we've made a lot of good decisions, and one of the things that I applaud Richfield for and hope they continue is that we have robust discussions about all sorts of tough decisions that have to be made. And I thank all of you for your support over the years.
And thank you, both of you, for your time on the commission. Thank you. Would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Very good.
Seconded.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.